When it comes to bosses, they may be the most iconic part of the Soulsborne series. I recently made a video talking about what I thought was the most overrated boss in every game, and I had some pretty controversial opinions. So of course, I thought a good follow-up would be the most underrated boss in each game, as I think there's a lot that deserve more love than they get. As always, if you find this type of content entertaining, then make sure to subscribe, as it helps out a lot, and let's get started. Not a whole lot of options for Demon Souls since this game is extremely dated compared to most of the others in the series, but I think the Tower Knight is a fun, albeit easy boss. He has a cool design and a nice gimmick that makes him really manageable, yet I basically never hear anyone talk about him. The level leading up to him is awful, and the first boss in this game sucks too, so that may stain most players' memories of him. But I think if you take that away, this is the first good boss of the series. Not much more to say about him though. Maybe a weird pick, but I'll stand by it. While it's definitely not my favorite in the game, I hear most people talk about how this boss is terrible, but I feel as though people are mixing up the area that it's in, being the Demon Ruins and near Lost Izalith, which are some of the worst areas in the series, with the quality of the boss itself. It still doesn't rank too high for me because his moveset isn't very diverse, and his arena being a lot of lava you have to avoid is annoying. But there's nothing really too offensive, and one of the main reasons I like him is that his design has a lot to do with classic Chinese literature, and I think that makes him visually one of the coolest in the game. So while not my favorite, he's not a bad boss like how others say. This one is a little different because I view the Looking Glass Knight as one of the best bosses in the main game, rather than just better than bad like the other two I mentioned. His design, location, and arena is awesome. Regardless of if you like the mechanics of the fight, I think anyone can agree with that. But I also really do like the fight itself. I feel as though he's a little easy and so not as memorable to many people, which is why he's not talked about that much. Either that or most people don't like Dark Souls 2, so they don't get far enough to even fight this boss, and an opinion isn't formed. But regardless of what the reason is, I definitely think that he's underappreciated, as an aesthetically cool and humanoid boss is welcome in any Souls game. So for Bloodborne, I invited another Soulsborne YouTuber that goes by Taz for his personal opinion on the game, so take it away.
Hey everybody, Ashen invited me to talk about the most underrated boss in Bloodborne, and I'm glad that he did because I have one that I really want to talk about. I think when a lot of people consider underrated bosses in Bloodborne, their minds rush to something like Shadows of Yharnam or Martyr Logarius, according to some posts I've read online. However, I think the real underrated boss of Bloodborne is Mergo's Wet Nurse. The Wet Nurse I think tends to get overshadowed by a lot of the bosses that come after it, being the final boss itself and the ones from the DLC, but I actually really enjoy this fight. Although the cloning phase she has does run on a bit too long, I think the bulk of this fight is really fun. She has some really fun combos to dodge effectively, and I have found that I personally love these slow, methodical boss fights that have really quick moments within them. Most of this fight, she does act very slow and self-contained, but then she whips out some quick moments of high energy, and I've always loved that type of boss design in From Software's games. Not to mention that the build-up to this fight and hearing the crying baby as you enter her arena to see a singular stroller is one of the coolest entries to a boss fight in the entire game. And yeah, that's why I think she's the most underrated boss in Bloodborne. Now back to Ashen.
It'd mean a lot if you guys could go subscribe and watch some of his videos. He makes great content that I think my audience would be interested in. I feel the same way about the Dragon Slayer armor as I do about the Looking Glass Knight. Now to be fair, the Dragon Slayer armor is less underrated, as I do hear people talk about why they love this boss occasionally, but in general I think he's overlooked because of his placement in the game, as at this point most players are just trying to beat him as quickly as possible to get to the Soul of Cinder. But I think he's a challenging fight in a very cool arena. And the Pilgrim Butterflies flying around everywhere with one of them attacking you is such a cool gimmick to me, even if I usually don't like having to deal with things like this in boss fights. Especially because in the lore, they're actually controlling the armor to attack you, which to me is really interesting. So while he's not the best boss in the game, he's definitely one of the better ones and not mentioned as much as he should be, in my opinion. The Great Shinobi Owl is definitely just a worse version of Owlfather, which is why a lot of people don't care much for this boss, but I think up until this point of the game, Great Shinobi Owl is the best boss, and no one really talks about it. The story of how you're essentially fighting the one who trained you is really cool to me, and I think the Ashina Castle arena has never looked better than this fight. His mechanics may seem strange. His poison gimmick is annoying, and the effect that you can have where you can't heal is interesting, but to me is really easy to dodge. The swordplay itself is perfect though. He may not be as tight as Genichiro, but he's unique enough to, in my opinion, be underrated. But to be fair, the boss roster in Sekiro is generational, so maybe that doesn't mean too much. Romana is a very safe pick in my opinion. She gets overlooked for I think 2 reasons. One being that she's the second to last real boss in the DLC, being before Promise Consort Radahn, but also that she has no cutscene or dialogue. And to be fair, I have the same issue with Rolana, who I also called overrated, but I think Romana has better mechanics and is a very smooth and fun fight. Challenging enough, but she's also a completely perfect boss and there's nothing really unfair. Dodge timing can be difficult, but it all makes sense, and her arena is very cool as well. I think there may be an issue with the performance here because weirdly this fight always drops my frames to 30 FPS, which has always been strange to me, but never bad enough to ruin the fight, which is why, in my opinion, she's the most underrated in the game. Again, thanks to Taz for coming on today's video. Make sure to check out his channel and subscribe if you like his content because that would mean a lot. And yeah, that's about it.